So, Sello, thank you so much for making time to share your insights into the future of leadership.
No, thank you so much, Doc. It's really an honor and a privilege to be in a platform where many leaders in our country have been and have engaged with yourselves before. So I take this as a great honor and a privilege indeed to be here.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sello, and it's great to have you on the show. And before we walk into the future, can you please tell us a little bit about your background? Where did you grow up?
Yeah, so quite correctly, my name is Sello Seitlholo. I was born in the province of the Northwest in the town called Potchefstroom in Ikageng Township in 1989. I attended my primary school in Pudulugo Primary School. I later went on to do my middle school in Kiagile Middle School. I completed my secondary education or matric, as it were, in 2008 in Tlokwe Secondary School. And then I later went on to start my first year at the Northwest University Potchefstroom campus back in 2009, where I did my BA Studies in Development and Management, which was a combination of politics, public management and governance, as well as law subjects. We also had sociology and quite a number of other additional modules. I graduated my BA honors and subsequently my master's degree at the same university, and then later went on to become the junior lecturer at the same Department of Public Management and Governance at the School of Social and Government Studies. And then in 2017, I left academia, became the Provincial Campaigns Director for the Democratic Alliance in the Northwest. In 2019, I obviously became a member of parliament after I applied. And now here I am. I am the Deputy Minister of Water and Sanitation in the Government of National Unity 7th Administration on behalf of the Democratic Alliance, which I've been representing since 2019. I am married for 9 years now. I've got 3 boys. And yeah, that's in a nutshell, that's who I am. And this is what has led me to be here today.
Thank you. Now, going back to your earlier days, can you tell us what was your dream career when you grew up?
Yeah, so back in the day, we really didn't have a lot of career exhibitions at school, but there were quite a number of professions that were spoken about, lawyer being one of them. When I was in middle school, my English teacher at the time, Mrs. Sehoke, had identified a talent in me in terms of being able to speak publicly. And then I also then took an interest based on her observations in debate. And I think a lot of us in that field where you were able to actually speak in public and otherwise, you were always touted to become a lawyer. And I think subsequent to that, then I think I also then fell into that bandwagon to say, I want to become a lawyer and all of that. But when I got to high school, and I met quite a number of great teachers as well there, I continued with my debate and public speaking. I participated in district, regional, and national competitions in as far as that is concerned. But when I finished matric, I think because I think I had applied for law to study law, but I was accepted rather for the BA Development and Management Studies, which I of course fell in love with, and then obviously abandoned the idea of law and went into public administration and management at the time, which focused on government studies and politics. And yeah, I've never looked back since.
Thank you. And can you tell us who inspired you in your early days?
Yeah, that question almost sort of like the expectation, to those watching, is that I'll mention somebody quite significant, in our history, like Nelson Mandela, Barack Obama, and others. But for me, it's not that. I think it's my upbringing. I was brought up in church. I was brought up in a school, and you would either find me in church, school, or home. I had obviously my biological parents, which I'm blessed and fortunate to still have today. But I grew up really in a community where every your neighbor, every father and mother, whether in the community rather, they are your parents. So I grew up in a community like that. So I was raised, very in a very strict environment, in a strict household, with Christian values. And there's a lot of people that obviously participated in grooming me from a church point of view as well as school. I had very great teachers back in middle school, which is where I started engaging in debate and public speaking. We have the late teacher, Mr. Harry Letlhakeng, who sadly passed away. We had former Mrs. Lerefolo also passed away. We have one of the teachers that still happens to be one of or teaching to this day, Mr. Morena Kodisang, Mem Sohoke, as I indicated, Mem Pajani. There's quite a number of teachers that really played a crucial role from a middle school point of view. When I got to secondary school, rather, I met Mem Sabadira at the time, and there were a number of teachers, that also then groomed me, and really from a school point of view, I think that's where everything really started. So all of those people from church to school, including my own parents, my older brother, they were at the forefront of making sure that I was able to learn, I was able to have the sense of discipline, determination, and courage to really open doors for myself. I know we also had the late Mr. Kanzi, who was like a father to me, who also really played a great role in really putting me in a position where I am the young man that I am today.
Thank you. Now, I believe today you're the youngest minister, deputy minister in the administration. So what was a turning point in your career and I think it's very important for future leaders to understand, what got you onto this trajectory to the highest levels of government nationally?
Yeah, it's a combination of a number of things. I think I was fortunate enough to really in this journey of mine to again have been groomed by very special people in church, at home with my parents, in my community, as well as in school in particular, because it was those teachers, it was their lessons, that humbled me. It was their lessons, it was their ability for them to have scouted this talent in me to lead that really put me in a position where I was able to say, but if these people, if these teachers, if in my church I'm being pushed to lead, then it means there is something that they see in me. And it is something that I think that I need to nurture and that I really needed to take pride in. And I think for me, that was the turning point of everything. People around you seeing that you are able to lead, people around you seeing that you're able to stand up and really say things that even other people, are not in a position to say. So I think it's just an ability to be able to break grounds. It's just an ability to be able to accept when you've been, almost sort of like chosen, as it were. As a Christian, I believe that God is the one that makes decisions on what our purpose is in life, but he himself does not obviously come down and say it. It is the people who are around you, because there are people, whether old or young, that become the vessel. They become the mouth, the ears, and the eyes of God. And, when they speak and you listen, that is when you receive God's message in terms of what your purpose is in life. And for me, I think that environment, those individuals that I mentioned from church, school, and my own parents and my community, I think those are the people that kind of put me in a position where I realized that I am able to lead, and that was the turning point for me in terms of the leadership roles that I've had to occupy over the years.
Thank you, Sello. And can you tell us what is driving you? What is motivating you? What is energizing you to lead such an important and challenging portfolio?
I think when you grow up in an environment where you know and understand what poverty is, And the moment that you, and I think that's one of the reasons why I stuck to public administration and management or governance, is when you identify and realize the role that government plays in changing people's lives, and you actually see some of the failures in that. You start seeing it, as a student, and you start learning the theory in and around how government should look like as an institution, and what are the values of that need to be instilled by government in as far as policy direction is concerned, the setting up of policy, on what basis is policy formulated, and why do we have policy, and what does policy seek to achieve in terms of being implemented to obviously change people's lives. I think because from a higher education point of view, I had already had the theoretical background in terms of what was happening, and then from a research point of view, and also seeing a municipality crumble, as it were. When I did my master's, I was able to look at public participation mechanisms, for example, and I focused on ward committees as a mechanism to enhance local democracy. And I looked at just how these structures were failing, and I looked at how municipalities were failing, and I looked at the deteriorating state of our roads, water, and basic, just general service delivery. And I thought to myself, surely I do not want to be part of a generation where I occupy a certain office where I am able to make policy decision, legislative decisions that further almost sort of like entrench this behavior by government where it's failure galore and people are not receiving the services that they need from municipalities. When you are in this position, you crisscross and travel the country, and you see the collapse, you see the decay. And for me, that is what drives me. The ability to want to see South Africa succeed, the ability to want to see South Africans receive services that they pay for, the ability to see South Africa being able to again be the center of attracting investment, and being almost sort of like the poster child, as it were, the significant powerhouse in Africa that it used to be during the times of President Mbeki. I think for me, generally, without wanting to complicate everything, it's just I want to see people succeed, and I know that government plays a crucial role in providing services that are able to allow people to really get in there and do the work that they need to do for themselves, so that we can be able to achieve far greater strides than where we are now as a country.
Now, looking into the future, Sello, and I know it's a big question, but what does the future of leadership mean to you?
Yeah, well, I think one of the things that are very important for me, leadership is very difficult. Leadership is about making unpopular decisions. Leadership is about being able to stand in a room of 100 people and you stand as the only one with a varying view. Your ability to know that not everybody is going to accept what you say. Not everybody is going to look at you and think of you as you think of yourself. Not everybody is going to agree with your decisions. And ultimately, I think you need to be able to make sure that your values and principles are guided by the right things. Leadership in the future has to be leadership that learns from history, has to be leadership that is able to learn. You can't be a leader who thinks that you're the smartest person in the room. Great leaders were always the ones that were quiet in the room, were always the ones to speak last, were always the ones to take advice from a young person, from an old person, from a person with, if I could use for lack of a better example, with lower status than you. That is what builds a leader. Somebody who is able to learn that your decision is not final, because servant leadership is about being able to recognize that there are people that are looking up to you for you to represent them, whether it is at a council, whether it is at a legislature, whether it is parliament. Ultimately, you have to be able to recognize and realize that you must be able to open your ears more, be able to be respectful, have a sense of discipline, dedication, determination, and commitment to wanting to work towards a greater good. And I think what is very important for me is knowing your why. If, as a leader, you know your why, you are able to sit and work towards making sure that you achieve that. You're not distracted by anything. You're not distracted by those who say negative things about you. You are not distracted by anybody who says things that are not true about you and all of that. But you are simply focused on making sure that you want to achieve your why. And I'm making probably an unpopular example. But when Musa Maimane was elected as the leader of the Democratic Alliance, you recall that he was called many names. He was called names. He was sworn at, but he stood his ground. And at the time, of course, he believed that his why was more important, and he needed to stand in his ground in making sure that we are able to achieve a better South Africa for all. And ultimately, I think those are some of the things that we need to learn as future leaders. You need to be able to know that your why must be able to determine your actions.
Now, Sello, leadership is a tough job, especially in the public sector. It's a hard road to travel, and it's not always a popular job for the youth. So how do we go about to encourage the future leaders of this country and the world? How should we go about developing and building future leaders?
It's a difficult question in that it's not easy to answer. But I think if we get basics right from our education, for example, that's where everything happens. I mean, if I look at my life and I look at the role that teachers played in my life, having identified, the leadership qualities in me, having identified my potential, having identified my skills, that's where everything starts. And of course, one would argue that everything starts, in your household and with your family. And that is very, very true. Your parents, that is why it's so important for us to encourage a mom and a dad that still stay together, that are able to raise their children, and instill a certain sense of values in them. Go to church, because obviously as a Christian I'll speak, I'll be a proponent of that, because I've seen what the church can do, what it did for me. When you participate in church activities, and when you go to school where there are teachers who care about you as a future leader, when you go into a household where you've got mom and dad, and where you have got a government that works very hard to fight against social ills such as substance abuse, teenage pregnancy, and all of those other things. So when you've got all of these things happening at the same time, you are guaranteed, to really identify and polish young leaders who will be able to take this country forward. So it's not a one size fits all approach, but all of these systems determine the kind of leaders that we're going to have in the country, and all of them have to function in unison in order to be able to really build the kind of leaders that we need in our country. And as young people in particular, we must know that in this age of social media, in this age of people wanting things to just happen, things don't happen like that. There's a saying that says easy come, easy go. And we need to be able to know that as a young leader, it's going to take a long time for you to be able to go through all of these phases in life. You're going to have to, so just as you start in primary school, and you go to high school, you go to varsity, you make mistakes, you learn from those mistakes, and you fall and you get back up. But you have to be able to make sure that as a government, all of the things that we're responsible for as government, are geared to make sure that we're able to identify and nurture the kind of leaders that we need for our country to move forward.
Now, Sello, these are challenging times as the world is stumbling from one crisis into the next. What is your advice for future leaders in terms of challenges? What are some of the biggest challenges they should expect to encounter in their career and hopefully overcome?
It's quite a lot. But as I indicated earlier, there will be people who don't believe in your why. And I think one of the biggest challenges is falling into the trap of mob psychology, wanting to go with a group, being peer pressured into doing things that are not in line with your values and principles. Temptation in the space that we are in, it's easy to forget, your ethics, your morals, your values, your principles, because you've got all of these things that people come to you and they're like, leadership, here's a brown bag, here's a Dior bag, filled with 60,000, bend this way, bend that way. So future leaders will have a tough time in terms of all of these interesting things that are going to come, being offered a lot of things because you are a talented speaker, you are articulate, you are able to communicate complex issues in simple ways to a number of people, and people will realize that, and they will come. They will offer you many things. You are going to need the strongest backbone. You are going to need the thickest skin in order to be able to withstand those things. And you need to be able to believe in yourself and say, what easily comes to me can easily go. But you have to ask yourself, what is my why? Why am I in the position that I am in? If you believe that your purpose in life is to come and be a light on top of the mountain where everybody that looks at you can see, have hope, can see the future. Once you believe in yourself and once you accept that I am a called leader, this is what I need to be doing in order to improve my community, in order to improve my municipality, in order to improve my province, in order to improve South Africa, then you will not be swayed by things that are temporary. There are certain things that are temporary. Alcohol is temporary, partying is temporary, but your actions and your impact in people's lives, that is permanent. And once you are able to make that distinction, you are able to remain humble, listen, learn, accept that you don't know everything. You don't want to be a jack of all trades and a master of none. Know that there are people who are better than you in certain aspects or in certain areas. Know that it is through the diversity around the table that we will be able to achieve. Know that to be a servant leader means that you need to listen to even the most simplest of people that you might find, even the youngest of people, even the oldest of people. Those are the challenges that future leaders are going to face. Having to say no is going to be a big issue. Having to say no is going to be a big issue. If you're unable to say no, you are going to find yourself struggling to maintain your respect within the area that you are in, within the sector that you are in, within the environment that you are in, because you don't want to, people can come that have more money than you, that live in luxurious houses, and they come and say, we want to buy you out. If you are unable to say no as a young leader, as a future leader, you are going to have a very big problem.
Thank you. Now, Sello, many future leaders look up to you, and I'm sure many young leaders are learning from you in a formal or informal way as a leader and as a lecturer. Can you maybe share a success story or two where you mentored formally or informally an upcoming leader and that person took your advice to heart?
Yeah, I must be honest with you. I've never really mentored anybody over and above, my career, where I was a tutor at the Northwest University. At the time, we were called supplementary instructors, where you took first year, second year students, and you were able to take them through, the module that you are assisting them with. Over and above being a provincial campaigns director for the Democratic Alliance in the Northwest, where I was leading a team from communications to campaigns to finance. Over and above being a member of parliament, where I was leading a constituency and of course, having been a lecturer before, I've never really had a situation where I mentored somebody. I think because of the journey that I've had to travel through academia and administrative politics, and then active politics, those are three careers and different spaces where, yes, I've had to engage with a lot of students, where I've had to mentor formally as a lecturer. But I wasn't doing it, because I thought that students will listen to what I say and take it to heart or use it one day. In church as well, because I was also a leader in church, I was just doing things organically because I believe that is what is expected of me in that position. But I have had, many former students come to me and said, "Remember when you spoke about studying, and remember when you spoke about what it will take for you to survive university?" It was those words that really kept me, that really kept me from not going to drink alcohol, not studying, and all of those other things. Remember when you had extra classes for us for this particular module that we were struggling with, whether it's sustainable development, whether it's public policy and planning, whether it's municipal management. Remember, when you gave us hours after classes had ended. Those things were helpful to us. We were able to complete our studies. In church, remember, when you taught us this particular song, remember when you said something like this. So, over and above that, I do think that I've had quite significant and profound impact in people's lives, but it is not really something that I was kind of monitoring to say. A lot of them, I mean, there's a lot of whether it's former students, whether it's former staff members, whatnot, that have really said what you have done and your work has really encouraged us, and it has put us in a position where we can also give more. So it's not really about me having identified a mentee and I was a mentor and I can specifically talk about a certain individual. It's not like that for me. But I believe that the work that I've been able to do, whether at university, whether in administrative politics and active politics, I believe that I've given my 110%. And I believe whatever work that I've done has really, really left a lasting impact and has changed quite a number of people's lives. Although, of course, I cannot quantify it for you.
Well, that's, I guess the issue is inspiration. It's hard to quantify, but it definitely leaves marks. So, Sello,
Yeah,
looking back,
at the end of the day, that's all you want, and that's what you strive for, to inspire people so that in a hopeless situation, people can look at your work and find hope. And that's ultimately what we work towards, and that's what we're striving to achieve.
thank you. Now, looking back over your own leadership journey, are there any role models of leadership who you have encountered and worked with who you would recommend future leaders should learn from?
Yeah, I think it goes back to my earlier response. I worked with a lot of people, and when you say, that people can learn from, these aren't really people that, are all over social media. These aren't people that are creating content. But there are people that really have impacted my life very positively. Um, Starting again from my middle school teachers, those people till today, when I see some of them that are obviously still with us today, blessed enough to be with us today, I still speak to them as if they are still my teachers, despite the fact that, I am where I am now. And in fact, on the 3rd of October, I'm attending my former middle school English teacher's farewell function. She's officially retiring as a teacher. What an honor! What to really be looked for. I mean, she looked for me. She said, "I am looking for specifically this one. He must come and speak at my farewell function." What an honor! What a privilege! It means you have left a mark. It means you've done something that to them still remains years, after the fact. The late Professor Berry Hanyani, when I left, I think he left UNISA at the time to come to the Northwest University Potchefstroom campus in 2014. And this is a man where I decided to leave academia and join the Democratic Alliance. He obviously had his own views about that, but ultimately, we had an honest conversation. And he said to me, "What do you want to achieve?" In academia, you're going to be an academic doctor, you're going to be an associate professor, going to be a professor and whatnot. But what do you really want to do? I want to impact people's, lives through policy, whether it's implementation, whether it's the making of the policy. That's where the space I want to be in. The late Professor Berry Hanyane, may his soul rest in peace, as well as my other former teachers who've sadly passed on. Those are the people that have had profound impact in my life. Professor Looney Vermeulen, Dr. Christa de Wet, Professor Melvin Diedrichs, Professor Johan Simon, Miss Chantal Bloom. These are the people that from a higher education space were my lecturers and then later became my colleagues when I became a junior lecturer. Professor Gerard van der Walt, Dewald van Niekerk, and Kyla Forbes Biggs. All of those kind of colleagues at the university level really played an instrumental role in my life. And I think that was for me very, very important and very profound. My older brother, who also played a very critical role in my life, because it was through him that I learned what to do and what not to do at university level. And it is, that experience from his side and his background from that perspective that really guided me on how to complete university. There's, of course, quite a lot of other people in the Democratic Alliance. And I say this again, making the example again with Musi Maimane. I mean, for me, when I joined the Democratic Alliance, obviously he was the leader, he was at the forefront of that. And as I said earlier, at that point in time, the period that he was leading the DA and kind of the negative scrutiny and some of the unjustified swearing and name calling that he was going through, that said to me that if this man can go through this, if he can be able to lead such a diverse party, then, I can also do it. I'm also, in a position where I want to see, different South Africans sitting around the table and really discussing the future of the country, the betterment, of the country. So all of these individuals, and we all know that some of them had left the DA and whatnot, but some of us, we know that political parties are not perfect. But the question is, are they sticking to their values and principles, and are they achieving what they intended to achieve? When they communicate or through their constitution policies or whatever the case may very well be. And I'm still here because there's quite a number of people as well. You've got the likes of Solly Malati, you've got John Steenhuisen, you've got Helen Ziller, you've got some of my close colleagues and friends, Bakul Lenota, the Tamsang Mapena. These are the kind of guys, that even when I became deputy minister, they really stood up and clapped for me. And for me, that really, really showed that I have a great, number of people outside of my wife, of course, and my mom and dad and family that really want to see me succeed. And those are the kind of people that I have in my life that really helped shape my life, past and present.
Thank you, Sello. That's such an important lesson for everybody. Now, how can our listeners connect with you, and where should they follow you?
As a young person, I am on social media. It's Sello Isaac Seitlholo on Facebook. I am on LinkedIn. It's the same there, Sello Isaac Seitlholo. That's where I post my work. That's where I post my engagements. I do have a Facebook page dedicated, obviously, to my work as Deputy Minister. It's Sello Seitlholo, Deputy Minister of Water and Sanitation. That's where I post my work as Deputy Minister, my oversights, debates, budget vote debates, interviews. That's where you can find the work that I'm doing. But over and above that, I don't really, I think I've got the Twitter or X, whatever they call it. I don't really necessarily look at that. It's quite it's not really a space where I like to be. So, but there I'm at Seitlholo. And I think also I'm on Instagram, although I don't really post much. But when I post on Facebook, it obviously appears on Instagram. But my phone number is obviously public. So if anybody obviously has inquiries or wants to speak to me about anything, I'm also available in that respect.
Thank you. Now, Sello, last but not least, what is your message to the millions of learners out there who are looking to finish school later this year, to start a career, what are maybe one or two success principles they should keep in mind for entering the world of work?
Once you leave school, once you leave high school, that's when life starts. Once you start entering the doors of higher education, TVET, college, university, that's when life starts. Mom and dad are not there anymore. And your sense of discipline is going to carry you through in life. You know, there was a teacher back in high school, Mr. D. King, who once said to us, mix and spice everything you do with discipline. Mix and spice everything you do with discipline. If you are going to drink, drink with discipline. If you are going to do everything that you do it with discipline. And I think that's where, if you're going to study, study with discipline. You know, because ultimately, and at the end of the day, you must realize that you've got one life. And sometimes you have one opportunity. And if you are unable to take the opportunity that is before you, you will fundamentally and otherwise fail. As a Christian, I believe that God can be in a position where He gives you, as an individual, one talent and one talent only. It's possible that the only talent that you have is to play football. The only talent that you have is to lead in public office. The only talent that you have is in engineering, or whatever the case may very well be. The question is, what are you going to do with that talent? Are you going to use that talent and increase it and open doors for others? What are you going to do? Education is your future. Education is your future. Yes, there are instances where people do not go through the formal education space and can become great leaders and can become great musicians, or whatever the case may very well be. You need to be able to make sure that you are able to utilize whatever opportunity is given to you and be thankful. Be thankful that you are able to be in those spaces. Be thankful that you are able to speak to the people that you speak to. But everything has to have a why. Why are you there? Why are you doing what you are doing? As a young person, stay away from things that do not build. Stay away from things that do not build. Alcohol does not build. Partying does not build. It's nice. And yes, of course, you must do it. You must enjoy yourself. But then again, everything that you do, you must mix and spice it with discipline. And I think you'll go a long way once you realize that your sense of discipline, be courageous, be adventurous, knock on doors where people said you will not be able to enter them, knock on them, take risks, you know, and most importantly, know that God is in charge. Know that God is in charge. You will fail. It's guaranteed. You will fail in life. You will lose loved ones. It's a fact. It's a cycle of life. I mean, myself, I lost my daughter in 2020. It was painful. But all of these things happen because God wants to teach you something, because God wants to elevate you to something. And where there is a setback, God is preparing you for something else. And you need to believe. Believe in yourself so that others can believe in you. Everything must start with yourself. Everything has to start here. If you don't believe in it, nobody else is going to believe in you. If you are not convinced by it, you're definitely not going to be able to convince others. Politics is a place where it must equal people. You are in politics because of people. And there are those of you who want to come into politics because you see the blue lights, because you see the chauffeur, because you see this. That's not it. It is about what you do. And as a young person, go out there, choose careers that are in line with what the future is going to demand. Don't go and try and study political science when it's not demanded or when it's not required in the future. We know AI is here, we know engineering, we know all of these things. Position yourself where you know that your talents will be needed in the future. It's a long-winded answer, but ultimately there's a lot of things to say when we want to motivate our young people. There's a lot of things to say because of so many social ills that we have in our country. And that is why we are in government, so that we can be at the forefront of making sure that we are able to address and build some of these things.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That was a wonderful answer. And I want to thank you for sharing your inspiration, sharing your leadership journey, and reminding us that discipline and education are the cornerstones for success.
Indeed, indeed, they are indeed the cornerstone of success. And as I said, failure is inevitable. We are all going to fail. We are all going to lose people that we love. But we must always remember that for every failure, for every heartbreak, pain, and all of that, God is just really building us towards something great if we believe that He is in charge.